What is going on, everybody? It's your boy MB. Happy Saturday, all y'all out there. So, if the Cowboys made it to the second round, hey, let's give a little round of applause to them Cowboys. It's been a long time since we've been there, but I think it's been a couple years though in the divisional round. So, we're playing against the Cowboys versus the 49ers. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, let's get into our offense and defensive standouts of the Bucks game. So let me show that little. There you go, right there. So let's go. So offense, get captain, the quarterback of the team, Dakota, our Rain Dakota Prescott. So he had 303 yards passing yards, four TDs passing, and one rushing touchdown for 24 yards. So hey, that's a definitely a big difference from the week before where you had 128, a touchdown and an interception. Big difference, and that's how the offense was ran. It was ran like a well-oiled machine. The week before that, uh, I can't say it on TV because their kids are watching tacos and touchdowns, so I can't say how that offense ran against the Commanders, or you want to call them the Salamanders, Commandos, whatever. But you got to first give it all to Dak. He did a great job distributing the ball out to the receivers, including lost train of thought, but them. And then the next person you got to give it on the offense is his go-to guy, his tight end Dalton Schultz, who had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 95 yards for 2 TDs. He was basically that guy that you go for the red zone type of guy. It usually you would see a go to Zeke at the time, but they switched it up and gave it to Dalton Schultz. He had some big catches in the game, and hopefully we'll see that when he plays against the Niners this week. Now we got to get to the defense. I'm a defensive guy, so we got to give it first to the line himself, Micah Parsons. On the stats, it's 3 tackles and a sack. So you're like, why does he get that? And then he had I was Curtis had an interception and everything. You got to give it to him too in the first half before he got hurt. But you got to give it to Micah Parsons, who was basically every time when Tom Brady would try to throw the ball, Micah was right here on his shoulder, ready to do something. The offensive tackle slowed him down, but he was clearing pressures. And that's what Micah Parsons been doing all season, dealing with the injuries and everything. He may not get on the stat sheets, but he's getting with the pressures. And you can see on when you look at the Cowboys, they're third when it comes to pressures. And I definitely see him in this defense against the 49ers on that right side going against Michael Galinci. Sorry if I butchered the name. He's allowed six sacks. So I definitely could see him on the right side. Most time he's been on the left side, 60% of the time on the left, 40%. I see that switching. We're gonna have him on the right because on that left side, he's going against Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles in the game. But I see him with a D Law on that side, kind of try to cause some havoc on that left side. You got to switch it up. You can't be scared for doing that. So definitely got to give it to Michael Parsons, he may not get it on the stat sheet, but he was putting in work. They had him as some linebacker this time. Let's go. So with him and LVE, and LVE had a hell of a game coming back from that. What was it that? I think it was a neck injury. If I'm wrong, my bad. But it was one of those injuries. LV has injuries, but he stepped up. Even in the run game, it's kind of like one of the things when we first drafted him, everybody was worrying about it. Is he going to be good? But he's definitely that captain of that defense for sure. One of the older guys on the team. But let's get to the second guy. I got to give it to a guy that we haven't heard much from this whole season until last week, and that's Easy McQuama, who came in when Javon Curse got hurt with the knee injury. Hopefully, he'll be back for this week, but it's kind of looking a little bleak on that part. But you got to give it to Izzy, who had 37 snaps playing the nickel and in the box. He had 4 tackles, 2 pass breakups, targeted eight times, and he only allowed 4 receptions for 49 yards. For a guy that hasn't played the whole season, that's a really good job. he was definitely playing that big slot. I definitely could see him this game in the nickel and the slot and the big slot for sure, going against like Jawan Jennings or the Ayuks and everything. So that's going to be my defensive standouts. I honestly see both of them having a good game this week, manifesting. Okay, so now let's get to my key matchup. So my key matchup is the Smiths versus Bosa. And you're saying why the Smiths? One thing about when it comes to Nick Bosa, they switch him on the left or switch him on the right. He's mainly on the right at times, but I definitely see them trying to go after Tyler Smith, the rookie, who's been doing a really good job as a rookie, a guy that had a problem with the penalties, and he really haven't had many penalties. Shout out to Duke Mayweather and Joe Philman working with him on the hand placement and everything, and just the whole staff because we haven't really had problems with him on the penalties. I think maybe he had like 3 or 4 compared. I think he had like 20 in Tulsa, but he's one of those guys that's still raw, working on his as an offensive tackle. I think he's gonna be better at a guard, but after Jason Peters had that hip injury, he's gonna be out for a few weeks, so basically the whole season. So he's going to step up at the left tackle. So he's going against. We can already say it's going to be the defense player of the year, Nick Bosa. You could have an argument that it could be Michael Parsons, but people are going to look at the stats on the stat sheet. You got, I think, Bosa is he's definitely number one in sacks and number one in QB hits. And what you see with Michael Parsons, he has double-digit sacks as well, but he's in that second place. So they're going to give it to Nick Bosa. But when it comes to that side, he definitely, I would see they should put him out a little more wide just to hold him up a little bit, minimize Bosa in the game. It's going to be tough, but I think Tyler Smith can do it. But they're going to have him at that right side, but you're playing against a veteran that's been playing since he was 20 and Tyron Smith. And he's one of those technician type of guys now. He used to be the strong physical guy, just throw people to the ground. He's gotten older and injuries got to him. So you got to work on it's got to be all technique. And he did a great job against the almost lost team who played against the Buccaneers. He struggled against the Commanders, but sometimes when players they turn into even different dogs in the playoffs, and that's what happened with Tyron Smith on that end. So my strategy with those guys, they go out a little more extra wide just to take care of a Nick Bosa. So that's my key matchups. Now we're getting to the real true meat and potatoes of the podcast. Keys to victory. What are the keys to victory when it comes to the offense first? Dak's got to use his legs like he did last week, making plays on the move with running. But please slide, Don't I know I know he got those ticks where he wants to run people over, but no, let's don't do that. I think if he sees a hole opening where he could run it, do it. He's not going to hesitate. I think that's what's going to be another key. And I think one of my main things I looked at a lot is their secondary is a little suspect. Let's get to the corners. So, two notable receivers are some of the top 10 in the league. One is DK Metcalf, who had the first time they played against the 49ers, he had 55 yards. But the next game over, last week, he had 136 yards and 2 TDs. And if you want to go a little bit more back when they played against the Raiders, they beat both these teams. But another one is Devontae Adams, who had 153 yards and 2 TDs. You can't tell me that CD Lamb can't have a hell of a game against this secondary. I think he can get 100 and some yards and maybe a couple TDs or two. I think honestly you got to feed it out to CD and as well as when it comes to the safeties. I don't mispronounce his name, but the one out of USC, he's a hitter. He's a hitter, but one thing he struggles in right now is in coverage. I would take advantage of that, putting my tight end out there, and they've been in mid-tier against containing tight ends. I'm going to see if Dalton Schultz can get out there. Heck, even Jake Ferguson, who's showing like playing like a little baby Wooden back in the day. So I'd have them involved. And And as the possession receiver, you use Michael Gallup. He had some great catches last week. And you can't forget about Ty. I hope they forget about Ty. He can be that deep guy, going throwing deep, or he's kind of like or being that third and short guy. He's that veteran that has that good route running ability. You got to get him involved. And obviously, you got to establish some type of run game in some type of way. You just got to be creative with it. I know they're first place in stopping the run, but we got a Tony Pollard, and I honestly get him into spaces, wheel routes, or just throwing those quick dump offs to him real quick. Just get it about. He's shifty, fast, and let's utilize him. Maybe even get Davis in there. Like he didn't get any touches last week. I would get him involved, and of course you got to get Zeke into the short yardage, just like the 2 to 3 yards. He haven't had over 4 yards in 5 weeks, so that's what Zeke's game is going to be: is getting those quick short yards or goal line. Like I still think Zeke can be hell of a goal line running back. And some people like that's what we're paying for to do this. Well, Zeke's been in this on his team for a while and did some great things for us, but his role on this team in the playoffs is going to be I'm going to be that short yardage running back, and that's what he's going to do. So we got to get to the defense. I know a lot of people are saying, well, Purdy's 7-0 right now, hasn't lost a game, but he really hasn't played really like super no like top tier epsilon type of teams. He played against two playoff teams in the Seahawks and then the Buccaneers. I might be missing the team, but those are kind of the wild card teams. If you were talking about like the Bills or the Bengals or something like that, or the Eagles, okay, then we got a conversation right there. But honestly, this defense on the front seven needs to generate pressure and create turnovers. And one thing they got to do is we know we play a zone defense is we got to cover and play physical and wrap up against these receivers. Three of these guys are like similar traits. Like you got the Debo Samuel, you got the CMC, and you got you all the same build. They're not those big possession receivers you were playing against the Godwins and the Evans last week. You got to wrap them up and create turnovers and lock down on as much as possible as you can because they can go out deep. So the corners got to be on their game, especially when it comes. I definitely see Izzy in there. Bland, I think, is going to do some work. And Diggs, I know Diggs might not be the physical, but he's a hell of a cover corner, and I think he could trail Debo, whoever they put on him, and I think he's gonna come with a pick. Honestly, when it comes to tackling, I think I know Deron Bland is a hell of can tackle, and Izzy can tackle. So I would definitely switch those guys around. Maybe getting in the veteran Xavier Rose involved. He had an okay game, and maybe. And one thing I to give before I forget, shout out to our defensive line. They did work last week. Big Hank, the one tech got him a sack against Brady. That was as a former defensive tackle. That was it was great to see. But I was just gonna keep a short show, nothing too long. It actually went longer than I thought I was gonna do. It's actually we're at 13 minutes. Man, shut up. I think this is probably the longest one I did by myself, but it's solo Dolo episode, so I don't want to take too much of y'all's time. But I hope y'all have a great day. Oh, before I forget, my prediction for the score of the game is 24-17. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys. But that's all for you. That's all for this week. We'll hopefully be back next week talking about some Cowboys versus again. And y'all have a good weekend. Enjoy some football. Enjoy with your family, your friends, or whatever. Peace.